Are you ready to learn? Because my super experienced guests are ready to share some really valuable information. Make sure and listen all the way to the end to get help and support. So let's start with the best audio experience.
Hello guys and welcome to our show. Today we discuss about product management and more. We can touch the topic about user experience. It's interesting that many years ago I didn't consider a lot user experience. I was wrong because at that point in time Google ranked almost all my websites, but things change with many updates, and today I pay a lot of attention with the topic user experience. I learn more and I care a lot about customers because if you can satisfy your customers, you can win in the long run. And today I'm so excited to discuss this topic with Crumlish. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for me it's a big pleasure. I check out your profile. You have extended experience. I want to know more. Before we start, just tell more about your background, experience, and why you decided to share with us about this topic.
I mean, at a high level, I've spent now, I guess, most of my working life with internet technology. For the first half of it, doing UX, user experience related jobs of one kind of another, information architect, content strategist, interaction designer, design manager, design director, things like that, but for the second half, the last 10 or so years, I've been in product leadership roles, doing product management. So I've been at bigger companies in the older days like AOL and Yahoo, worked on AIM. Also, I spent a lot of time working on startups. I was the head of product at a mental health startup called 7 Cups for 4 years. I've more recently been working with government projects like the COVID website for the state of California. But along the way, I found that there are a number of other people who have, like me, something of a UX or design background, but also some interest in this idea of product management. And there's a shared interest. Product managers and UX designers and researchers all are really obsessed, like you said, with the customer, with the experience of the customer. In the end, you realize it doesn't matter what you make or how cool your visuals are, or even your features, or your offering of your service, the quality of your content. None of that really matters if you haven't figured out what people need and you're not speaking their language and kind of showing up where they need you to be. You can be great, but they don't find you. You're not there when you need them. You use language they don't use. So it all comes down to that, like being obsessed with the customer or the end user, the person you're trying to satisfy. And then all the other things are skills you learn about how to do that.
Nice. Love it. I remember when Jeff Bezos told about that, many businesses are obsessed about competitors, but Amazon is obsessed about customers. So they're customer oriented and they suggest for everyone. It's not like forget competitors, no way, but think more about customers, how you can help them, how you can satisfy their intent, how you can decide their problems, support them, because many things how you can do it. And can you tell about how to learn customers today? You mentioned that you need to understand customers, but I also see companies use online data, the average data from studies or from online tools, but it's the average, and each case is different. Even two companies can sell one product but have their strong sides and unique selling proposition. So it's better to learn customers. Can you tell how to do it?
How to do what?
How to learn customers. How to learn customers.
How to
learn customers.
How to learn them?
Yeah.
How to understand them and understand their needs. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I understand what you meant by learning.
I'm Ukrainian, no worries.
No, I understand, and it's perfectly good to get the equivalent. I actually like always to hear how other languages work, and the way you put the words together. I think that so there's a, probably at the highest level, there's things get broken down into like quantitative and qualitative, or numbers and more like words, numbers and ideas, and subjective things. Numbers are presented as more objective. If you have empirical data, then that's sometimes a little bit stronger evidence than we talked to some people and we got the impression that they want this or that. You could say, well, we tried offering it and no one clicks on it, so your impression is fine, but the data is showing that it's not true. Having said that, the qualitative, subjective, talking to people, looking at information, trying to put the picture together from a lot of different sources of information is as important as the sort of numerically driven stuff. And just because you have data doesn't mean that it really tells you why something is true or whether that will continue to be that way or whether there's a real opportunity there. So in a sense, when you're trying to understand customers, as you said, I mean, it's not really any one person, it's a type of person, or it's enough people who share enough things in common that you can make a living selling them something, some service or product of some kind online. On some level, you have to profile them, you have to understand them, you have to have user experience designers make things called personas, and you can argue whether personas are a good or bad tool. I'm not a huge user of personas myself. Even when I was a UX designer, I didn't love them that much, but they do serve a purpose because they force you to talk about prototypical types of users and understand what they're like. Oh, they're typically in this age range and they don't have this much time and they have kids or they don't have kids or they're worried about their budget or they're not, or they're worried about their getting their shopping done. Like you kind of have an understanding of that person on some level that ought to be informed by real world interviews, actual data, maybe government data, maybe publicly available data, maybe your own research. And then once you have products actually in the world, whether it could be, I mean, in a sense, like even literally the YouTube channel or the streaming is a product. You want people to come, your numbers, you want them to go up, you want to continue to have the attention that you get. Like once you're actually in the wild, in the public, then you have real world data on top of all your other research about what might work and we should build something. I hope people like this. I think they will. It makes sense to me. Once you start to merchandise it, package it, put it out there onto the marketplace, people vote. They and you can say, well, no one heard about it, or it was a bad week, or whatever. There's always maybe a reason. That's fine. Try to fix that thing. So after a while, you're in a dialogue with the actual customers and not just like theoretical customers, and you're trying to meet their needs and understand them better. And sometimes you can ask them questions. They give you their email, they sign up, they register.
Yeah.
At that point, and not to just keep talking, but there's a point where you have to continue thinking about people who aren't your customers yet. Because once you have customers and you talk to them, which is great, because not everybody even really talks to their customers. But if you do learn from existing real people using whatever you offer, that's so good, that's so valuable, it's almost intoxicating, but it can make you forget that there may be whole other types of people out there who don't know about what you do or haven't found it yet or don't get it. And you may learn nothing about them by just focusing on people who already made it to the party, already found the way in. And so you may need new strategies to get that next layer of the onion and the one after that and the one after that, which doesn't mean you stop looking at your core people, your early adopters, your people now. You do want to keep them loyal and learn from them and focus on them to some degree, but not to the exclusion of other possible growth opportunities.
Yeah, nice. So valuable. Okay, let's talk about another issue that I often see from my customers and many websites. Many of them are trying to sell a lot of products from one page. They submit like in the home page almost all their catalogs, products, but many customers hate it. They are not satisfied to get all products because it confuses. When you open the page and see many different products, you don't know what to click, what to learn. So I think simplicity works well if you simplify content.
And it's a temptation. I mean, you understand how that gets this way, right? Because there's a competition to get, like, I want my product featured on the front page of our company's website, and so does somebody with a different line of business in the company. And so it's like in the early days of commercial websites, they often had, like, it was just the navigation was all the VPs fighting for some page on the website. It wasn't based on the user, what they expect, what they're looking for, how they think, or anything like that. So often you compromise by having just too much. You say yes to everybody and everything's up front. But I think we already know that people, more choices make people actually buy less. It seems contradictory. You think, well, we'll give them more, then we'll get the second and third choice sales too. But you start to get people saying, I'm not sure, now I can't decide, or I'll come back later when I have time to research these questions, or it just starts to overload people cognitively. And there's a little bit of math on this, but it's also sort of common sense if you think about it. There's a equivalent that happened, like I said, back in my Yahoo days. I wasn't on the team, but the people who put the ads on the email program, they they had to sort of fight back against the fact that the ads had started to take over. I don't know if you remember what Yahoo Mail was like maybe 10, 15 years
Yeah.
ago, but something on the side, something on the top, and something on the bottom. And they couldn't even always sell valuable ads. So you get a lot of rotten teeth or belly fat or 5 quick tricks to save whatever. And as you can imagine, a lot of these were just what they call run of show ads that just are like they'll just a run of network. They just go anywhere to fill in the gaps, and they're worth almost nothing. And that was creating a terrible user experience where the actual email was getting less and less real estate, and most of the ads were poor quality ads. What does that say about the brand? And so the ad team had to do some research, some data, and then some experiments to fight back and finally say, we'll actually make more money if we have one good classy banner ad and that's it, or whatever they move to at that point. But that pattern happens again and again, the overflow, the sort of like growing too much stuff, and then realizing, we're just like, now we're selling nothing. We got to pick the featured thing of the month and show that, or even 2 choices makes me uncomfortable sometimes. That's already too much.
Yeah, got it. Okay, what about personalization? Once I asked one customer why you submitted a lot of products in homepage, and he replied to me, he tried to replicate Amazon. But Amazon can sell 1 billion products, and Amazon has data to personalize products. For example, they know my habits, they know what kind of items I'm going to buy, so they share something that might be interesting for me. So if you have no this data, if you have no loyal customers, a lot of them, so it's better to simplify content. And can you tell about personalization? How it's important today to personalize experience? For example, if I learn customers and I am going to add only products that might be interest to them, and more about personalization.
Sure. No, I think I hear what you're getting at. I mean, you make an interesting point right up at the beginning, which is that sometimes to imitate another successful product isn't going to work, mainly either because you may not understand why they do it or how they do it exactly, just what it looks like, what it appears to be. And as you point out, you may not be in the same position as that company. You may not have the same volume of traffic. You may not have the same amount of data to work with to make recommendations or things like that. So I think personalization is a kind of a cool thing, sound, and it sounds cool. And there's definitely some contexts where it adds value. I would think of it as something like it's what you do when you've exhausted how much value you can get out of a basic offering that satisfies most people. Like if you haven't got that right yet, adding a bunch of personalizations and saying, oh, people will make their own sandwich and they'll figure out what they want. Like that's not actually design or product, focus. That's just giving up, So at some point you have to say, we think there's a main idea that we can describe to people. It's not build your own bicycle. It's a bicycle. It has 2 wheels. So yes, maybe it has, you get to choose the color, but it's a basic set of features that people understand. Basic functionality, we solve a problem. And then, once you start to say, hey, we've now got so many users that they fall into slightly different categories. And it would be easy. And some of them want feature X, but a lot of them don't like that. They like it the way it is now. And then to say, okay, let's recognize that certain types of people, we either detecting by their behavior or letting them opt in, want to have a different, a personalized, like something that's more tailored to their needs, a feature change or something offered to them. That's a road you can go down. It adds complexity. You have to maintain it. It's like something like patching software. You now have 2 versions of everything, or a configurable set of things that have to be tested all the time. So, it can pay its own way offering personalization, but it's a fairly mature thing to offer on often, a product line or a feature set that's already kind of dealt with the major issues of figuring out, its market and its main purpose and its value, and kind of it's now looking to eke out improvements on top of that.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, let's talk about. I want to get back a little bit to simplicity. When I open apple.com, I can see only a few quotes without any text, like make difference, iPhone, and something like this. But in most cases, I get nice looking pictures. iPhone on the first visible screen, so I can see iPhone. If I scroll down, I can see another iPhone. Very simple, but I see when websites add a lot of text. Probably it's good for some user experience, for some products, for some projects. I don't know, but can you tell how to find the balance? How many words to write? Because I still get this question. How many words to write? How many words to submit? How many articles to publish? And Google usually denies words counting on their algorithms. But anyway, if you wanna satisfy user experience, can you tell how to find the balance between writing a lot or writing less when you create let's imagine some page?
You get into some interesting points too, because there are sometimes the attempt to extend or stretch the content or reuse it does get you like in trouble with Google, or it makes it look like you're creating content farms or something like that just to capture traffic. And in some ways people complain that's what Google is just becoming more and more often. If you search, you just find dynamic pages that are built to capture your search, and they're not really anything valuable. But aside from that, I think you're making sort of a deeper point, which is that the thing that attracts even search engine traffic, or in general gives people value when they're, say, visiting your website, is to have plain language, easy to understand language that is as simple as possible, and the least you can get away with. What I'd say at the same time is that it's very important. The content's very important. In some ways, it's more important than the design, the visual design, the logo, the look of things, which those matter. The established brand and credibility and style and taste, and everything matters. But in the end, to try to, especially on a website or any kind of online thing, the words that tell you the names of the buttons, the language of the software, like what things are called, the explanations and the help, that all that is going to actually, that's actually more of the interface than anything else. So getting that part right is important and deserves a lot of attention. But I think it's important to also keep it limited, not overload people. People don't like to read a lot. It's not like a book. They just want to know what to do and then do a thing. They don't want to hear the story, the history of why you did it, or all the reasons why it's good. You can bury things. There's certain people who go looking, I want to know the truth. Tell me what this all is. So down 2 or 3 links in your site, you can have, the ancient history of your project and everything about it and all the interesting references for geeks who are really into that thing. But you don't want to lead with that. You're going to scare other people away. The simplicity you talk about, often people point to, say, Apple's this great prototype, a very white site, when they've got something, a product, only one on the screen at a time, or you're focusing on, you're just looking at iPads or whatever it is. And they definitely get that idea of simplicity and focus and not overwhelming people, because it's not like you don't have any guarantee of people's attention. They can leave at any time, so you can't flood people with a wall of information or assume they're going to look at all your examples. You kind of have to figure, you get one shot, like you got to make one thing count. And if people like it, they may keep going and you'll get additional shots. But if you think the way to do that is to go blah, 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 and give them 93 things on the screen at once, or lots and lots of words to read, or links to make their way through, then you're just kind of making it harder to see that one thing that they might want to grab.
Yeah. Nice, love it. Okay, let's talk about reading a lot. I can't avoid one question, because I see on your background a lot of books. My passion is to read books, and I can spend a lot of time with that. If I have it, of course, many other things to do, but I love reading books, and I usually sacrifice my time with other hobbies because of reading books. Can you tell what kind of books you like, how they can help you, and possible you can list some books that you recommend to listeners now?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's hard sometimes to rattle off names of books. Things may come to me, and even afterward, maybe I can send you something to attach. But I would say that, I grew up reading books in a time when there weren't as many other options. I couldn't have read, there was no internet to read all day long. There was no Wikipedia or whatever, and books were my way to learn about the whole world. So that's important to me on some level, where even though I've got shelves full of books, these are mostly of the past. I'm rarely pulling a book off one of these shelves and consulting it. And half of them are novels over there, but there's a bunch of, work and business related books. I obviously I should be plugging my own book, Product Management for UX People, which came out from Rosenfeld Media. Rosenfeld publishes a lot of good books about user experience and related subjects. So just as a press, I recommend them as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an author and a friend of mine, he wrote the foreword for my book, named Matt LeMay, who's a very good product management like consultant and writer, who just did a second edition of his book. And unfortunately, I don't have the name of the book. It's like Product Management in Practice or something like that. I should look it up, but Matt LeMay is his name. Just on the sort of main themes of product management and UX, those are some of the ones to hit. But in some ways, I'd say that it can be fun to read books that are professional development or teaching you a technique or learning the language of some sort of business area or something so you can get into it. Like that's all great personal development and opportunity kind of based stuff. But and so maybe I might be speaking a little bit from privilege here. But in some ways, I think it's things like the novels that I read, maybe the science fiction novels, but also other novels. And some of the just more open-ended exploratory reading, like I've done of history, wanting to know what happened with the Eastern Roman Empire or China or something like that didn't come up in school very much for me. Those things have sort of stretched my mind and made me understand people and think about the way things could be and things like that I think help in the work of making software, making digital projects, making things online, making online digital experiences. It's not a direct thing, obviously. You can't say, go read this novel and then you're going to make a better website next week. But it's more like the humane side of understanding people, which is kind of at the root of a lot of this.
Yeah. Awesome. I agree with that. If you read books, you can get ideas, you can use them, in various situations. Okay, let's talk about product management. Can you tell where to start? For example, 10 years ago, even more, 12 years ago, I launched my online shop, and I had a copywriter who was an editor, who was content manager, who was a designer, who was a content manager. He did everything, and that worked well. Google ranked our websites, so he could write, edit, design, many things. But things change. Of course, today it's better to have a team who one can write great text, second can edit them. I have a designer, I have a content manager. Even more, I have someone who check out and analyze bug testing, because these errors appeal from nowhere. I don't know how they appeal, but we got them a lot. So we have web developers who can optimize content. Can you tell about product management? How to start learning about that?
Yeah. I mean, in that model, I think one thing is sometimes to think about, are you already doing product management de facto? Like is that maybe not by that name, but of the things that would be done by a product manager in a product management approach, how are those things getting done now? For instance, it might be that your designer, UX designer, is doing some of that conceptualizing how everything connects to each other. And it might be that people on the team are doing some research or doing some, understanding the customer's kind of work that a product manager might do. Might be that some of the work of focusing what to develop next and what's the best thing to work on technically to solve a problem. Maybe the engineering team is self-empowered and kind of has product ownership in the sense that you just tell them, hey, I trust y'all. I just needed something that will solve this problem. And they come back and say, okay, we figured it out. Here's the way. Versus an approach where you say, I need you to build me a specific tool. Here's what it needs to look like. And you give them all tickets to work on. So it might be that they're acting like a product team and that whoever's helping them sort out and prioritize. It might be you. Sometimes the leader, the person at the forefront of the project is an owner or some sort of product lead, de facto, the one who makes the tough calls on, look, we can't do everything, so let's do this for now, and then later on we'll do that. That's the work of a product manager often, is to say, look, of all the great things that are possible, we don't have infinite time and money, so we have to do the most important things and the most urgent things, but also the other important things that aren't urgent yet that will later on be urgent. And then hopefully we'll be successful and we'll have more time and we can do some of those other things we also want to do. But it's hard to say that when everything on its own seems like a good thing. So that's that, providing that discipline. So you might sometimes say, okay, we already have that. We just do it. We distribute those different roles among different people on the team now. Sometimes you can say, well, we'll just, the person who's doing most of that will, we'll just realize they're kind of functioning also as a product manager, and just maybe, give them some more things to do like that if that's what they want to do. Or you could say, we don't do that. We're not getting enough of the benefit of what a product manager could offer, meaning like we're not necessarily focused, or we're not agile enough, but still focused at the same time. We're not making roadmaps, or we're not talking to customers enough, even though we maybe have a designer or things like that. So in that case, you might say you're going to create a new role, or possibly migrate an existing person into a role of being dedicated to those functions, even though maybe today some of those functions are paid attention to by some people. But you could say, well, we could do better if we said we're going to use this product lens. We're going to say we're making a product, and the product has to like get into the market. People need to want it. They need to discover it. They need to like it. They need to keep using it, tell their friends. And we got to measure whether that's happening or not, both like in the marketplace, like are we selling, but also inside the digital product, are people making it all the way to the conversion point? Are they buying, or are they signing up or subscribing, or whatever is considered a win? We need to look at that data, be honest about whether it's working, run experiments that will try to like improve, the key data. So there's if you decide you want to take that approach of saying we're going to treat what we're doing like a product, and we're going to try to improve its match with the market until it's really delivering and really being absorbed and used by a lot of people who would be sad if it went away, then we have fit, and we can start to really deliver and improve on that foot in the door. That's when you might say, yeah, we think a product management approach on top of everything else we're doing is justified. And again, we'll deputize somebody on the team to be that product lead and to be responsible for those things, or we'll create a role for that and hire a product manager, or promote or cross, change someone on the team now into that, replace them, backfill them, or something like that. That's often the way you start doing it. I mean, a lot of my consulting is with businesses that are introducing a product management role for the first time, like their first product person, and being told, usually sometimes they're a startup, so they've got an advisor or investor saying your product isn't good enough, your product isn't focused, you need product, but they don't know what it means exactly, so they're asking me. They think they maybe want to hire me, and I'm like, no, you can't afford me, and you don't really need me. You need a good product manager, and I can help you find one, but you don't need an expensive old person who like charges a lot for their hours and things like that. Not about age, but just level of experience. And but I can give advice to a company like that. I can say I can help you define the role. I can help you figure out what you need actually in the way you're doing it now. But all things is about shifting over from a project mentality, like the old death march of like waterfall project. Did you hit the Gantt chart? Did you hit the dates or not? Are we behind or are we on time? To a more iterative, results outcome oriented approach, where you're just like constantly checking to see how you're doing and adjusting the plan and making new plans rather than being locked into your original idea.
Yeah. Can you tell how to find a good product manager? Because you mentioned that you can help to find some good product manager. And let's talk about hiring, how to find the right product manager, because we have many. I don't want to tell that they are bad or mediocre. So it depends. But can you tell how to find the best product manager?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's sort of a $1 million question, right? Because it's kind of like it's how to find good anything is hard, but I think that it starts with I think the beginning is to actually develop a point of view for your own business or enterprise, whatever it is, about product management. Because as you say, there's a lot of good and bad product managers out there. And that's not just because there's a lot of rogues, people just practicing because they're bad. It's often because there's a lot of bad product management organizations out there creating bad product managers, training them in bad ways and then sending them to other places. And partly because it's a new discipline and it's not well learned and it's not even 100% agreed upon across the board what it should be. Like, you're hearing my opinion, how I think it should be. And I would always be the first one to acknowledge that, your results may differ. Like, there's a lot of people not practicing product management the way I think it ought to be. And I always like to make that distinction. So you're right. And like, if you're looking to hire product managers, to make sure that you're not getting people who have the title and who say certain buzzwords, but then don't seem to get the real underlying kind of mindset needed, which I'd call, again, the sort of a more outcome oriented mindset, where you can talk about, we did this and then this happened, and it maybe wasn't what we wanted, but we learned something from that. So then we did another thing and that happened, and we learned this, and then eventually we did this and it worked really well. Like you want to hear stories like that versus like, I shipped, we were agile and we did all these sprints and we hit the deadlines and it was a success. Like that's a very different story from what was the success, what was the outcome, and how did you get there? So in terms of, like, say, looking on someone's resume or how they describe themselves or how you interview them, you sort of try to sift on that level. But again, like I said, I think first of all, you have to say, well, what kind of product managers do we have do we want to have, if we don't have any yet, or do we have already? What's our way? What's our practice? And if, let's say, you agree with me that product managers don't have to be all powerful, but they are there to keep people focused on outcomes and to be very honest about whether things, what's the data really telling you, and to be there to help the team, continually work on improving and addressing each problem as it comes up, and leveraging design and understanding the technological constraints and still finding the best path forward towards the goal. If you want that kind of role, then you need to define it in your job description, in your duty statement, and however you kind of create that sort of thing. And again, then when we try to recruit people, you want to describe the job that way, so it selects for people not just who've had the title or who think they want to be a product manager, but who want to be this kind of product manager. Because, like, for instance, if they want to be a tyrannical boss who just gets to make all the decisions and they decide what's on the roadmap and they decide what's in the sprint and they decide what ships, but they don't want to start their own company or whatever, then this might not be the job for them. Like, you might want to describe the job to make it clear that, like, this is not that kind of a product manager. This is a collaborative job that's about helping the team do its best work, where if you do it really well, you're almost invisible. So if you've got a clear, almost like an internal description of, like, a great product manager at this company does, or at this institution or organization, provides these kinds of things, focus on outcomes and honest, like clear looking at actual empirical evidence about what's working and what's not, and an iterative process that's constantly shifting based on what's being learned, and a couple of things like that, then that's what you filter for in your hires. And they don't have to therefore be people. The greatest thing is someone who has been a successful product manager in that style somewhere else. And if those people exist, they're valuable. You have to pay a lot for them probably, but they definitely can do the job you want. The other kinds of people you get are people who've done adjacent things or equivalent or similar things under different titles, and they're ready to become a product manager, but you have to take a chance on them. They're going to be doing it for the first time with you, which is harder sometimes because it means you need to have a better idea of what you want. You can't just count on them delivering it all because they've done it before and they know the ropes. So it's a long way of saying that there is no simple formula. I think that this is how you get the best people, but I think that you get a mirror back of what you put out there. So if you say we're a product, we take product seriously here. We think product management means, whatever, whether it's something like what I would say of like a customer focus and being really obsessed with like delivering value to the customer, and then, learning how to do that and creating products and services that meet people's needs and things like that. If that's what it's all about, then that's what you're asking people. That's what you're telling people you're looking for. And that's who you're recruiting for. That's who people applying for you, should see in the mirror when they look. And if they say that's not me, you don't want them. Some people say, oh yeah, that's me because I want a job and this is a cool title. You've got to clearly weed out the wannabes from the people who really get it. But you have to know what it is first. And it may not be the same it as it would be for me, but you have to know what yours is. It might be more flavored by things that your work is about that are more specific. I don't think you always need people who've done your industry or your vertical before. It's nice if they have and can talk it. You don't have to train them on that stuff. But I think for product work, it's more, do they get how to do product than do they get how to do the particular kind of industry that you're in.
Yeah, nice, valuable, long reply and a lot of valuable insights. Okay, I have the question about optimization. For example, I remember I watched interview with Bill Gates, and he shared how he handles the business. For example, if he has product A and product B, and he invested X amount of money to product A and X amount of money to product B. If product B sells 2 times more, the next time he doubles investment to product B and doesn't invest anything to product A. Because of optimization investment, he can earn a lot more. And I see when companies when they have a lot of products, they are trying to manage all of them, and they forget about priorities because 20% of products can bring 80% of revenue. Can you tell about optimization? Because product managers often get a lot of things to do, many products, big online shop with 10,000 products. It's hard to check out everything, to analyze, because from my experience, I can analyze a few pages a day, if we are talking about real quality. But if you need to check out 10,000 pages, I don't know how to do it. Can you tell about priorities?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you're making me think of a couple things, about this idea of like optimization. I mean, on the one hand, you have what am I trying to say? Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought because I'm thinking of two different things at once. Phrase the question again, just to trigger my
how to optimize product management if you have a lot of products, a lot of items. So yeah.
Oh yes. So now that's it. So that I didn't realize why I wanted to go two different directions. The first thing, maybe just to put a pin in it, is that you make a really important point about how people often have trouble ending something or taking it off the table. Like somehow product people and a lot of people are often focused on shipping, shipping is a big victory. I get that. Launch day is great. I like to take a project that people have been working on, and it launches and you shipped it. The whole team celebrates, and that's a good thing. There's nothing like wrong with feeling good about that. But because that feels good, and telling people this product has reached the end of its life, or it's not really valuable enough for us to keep investing in it, so we're going to take it down. We're going to have to tell some of the customers who like it that they can't use it anymore, or that we're not supporting it or fixing it anymore. All those kinds of things. Those are all like not as fun. Like that's telling somebody they're not getting a raise, they're not getting a promotion. It's not the fun part of the job, but it's an important part of the job. So it's not surprising that you get a lot of product managers who love launching stuff, and some who love like even taking successful products but making them better. They don't necessarily want the risk of a startup, but they want to just get in there and optimize something to get back to your main point, to find the best version of the thing that they're working on right now. But you make a really strong point about how there's this third skill that I think product managers, it might be interesting to like really almost like specialize in that, because I think it's like being the undertakers. No one wants to be the undertaker, but that you never go out of business, because things are always ending and finishing and needing to be put down and taken off. So to take it closer to what your original point, or that was more of just an example, that is one of the forms of optimization that people struggle with, is taking, like reducing clutter, not letting every experiment you ever did keep running forever. And so the example with I think the Bill Gates example in some ways was a very grand version of A/B test. We put some of the money on A and some of the money on B. B won the test, so we kill A and we do B. And that's clearly on some very like black and white level smart and wise, and of course do the thing that costs more money. I mean, life is sometimes more complicated, and there's things that could be like kindled in different ways and all of that. But I think that on a high level, that's an important thing to do. The trick is, again, to say we got to pull the plug on that B, not like keep it around just in case, but to make those tough decisions and sometimes pull things out. That kind of, if you now bring it back down to the level of saying, I've got a product in the field, but I want to optimize it. I want to get, I want to convert more people. Right now, only 10% of the customers pay the premium sign up fee, and I'd like to make more money. How do you do that? Then there's then there's that optimization around a goal where you say, okay, we're going to measure this goal and benchmark it, and we're going to try to keep track of how many variables we think are involved, like how many people are entering the top of the funnel, and then what percentage of them are making it all the way through to the point of converting, and then what those absolute numbers are. And then other factors like what else they did and what else you know about them and things like that. You have a lot of possible variables. And then you potentially come up with hypotheses like, and hypothesis, funny, hypothesis, I don't know how well that translates because it's a Greek word used in English. It sounds fancy. And it pretty much just means like an idea about why I think this is why. Maybe it's because nobody likes yellow, or some, just like, it can be a very good hypothesis, a very raw hypothesis, but hypothesis just means like a supposition, like it's something you're wondering, maybe the explanation is this. Because like I said, data tells you what's happening. Oh, the numbers are good, they're bad, they're 1.1, there's some exact fact, but not why. Why do 1.1% of the visitors eventually pay? We think it's because whatever, well, the price is this and they want that, and whatever, you come up with a theory of that. Then you test it. And like, what would get some more people to convert? What if we change the price? What if we change the offer? What if we reduce the number of steps? What if we let them try it for free first? What if we have a sliding scale of price? What if we have more offerings? So there's a lot of different things you could try, and you can't do them all because your engineers have to be already busy doing other stuff, or they don't have all day to do every experiment. So you rank them and score them, you prioritize them based on what you think has the best potential. And then you run experiments. You offer a variation, or you try a new thing and you see how it performs compared to what you had before. I mean, there's various ways to do this kind of thing, but and the beauty of that is that sometimes you get no benefit. Like the thing you tried is your hypothesis was not valid. Like, no, it wasn't yellow. People love yellow. Yellow was not the problem at all. But now we can rule that one out. We can stop playing around with the color. That wasn't the issue. Let's work on the next thing. Other times you get a win. You're like, hey, we tried a yellow button. Everybody loves the yellow button and actually doubled conversions. So we'll keep that one. And the thing is, you keep the winners. You drop the losers. You keep the winners. And so little wins add up. A little 5% here, 10% here, 2x there when you're lucky, and you do that a couple of times, and suddenly you're talking real number gains. So that's another form of optimization where sort of like a team will focus really, really closely on some key goal or metric that there's a target for. And then it's still that same method of saying, what is this number? Is it getting better? No. Okay, then what we're doing isn't working. Let's try something else. Is that working? No. Okay, and you keep experimenting until something finally makes a difference. But I've seen it work. Like I mentioned at 7 Cups, which is this mental health company. It was a free product. Most people could just use it and get support from a volunteer who would just chat with them anonymously, listen to their problems, and be helpful. And that for a lot of people, 80%, like you mentioned, I think 20% of people, or 20% of the features give 80% of the benefit, or it's that kind of thing. Like 20% of therapy is just somebody listening, but that gives 80% of the benefit to most people, or something like that. But for some people, they need more. They want more. They have a bigger problem. They want a professional. So we started having a way to people to pay for a therapist and get a real professional to listen to their problems and give advice or whatever. And we were converting a certain percent, but it was good, but it wasn't quite enough to break even as a company. So we had a task force that was, in that way that I described, very much focused on how can we improve the conversion rate of initial signups, and also how long people stay, and the quality of all the variables that could raise the revenues on the subscriptions that was supporting the business. And by iterating like that, like sprint over sprint, choosing the best experiments that we thought we could do and running them, and then taking the wins and backing away from the losses. I don't remember exactly the time frame, but over the course of maybe 2 quarters, we got something that was like shaky up to the point where it was financially helping it made the company break even, meet payroll just from that revenue. Basically, just not to throw numbers around, but it was basically like, imagine something, this is equivalent, going from about a 1% to about a 1.5%, which doesn't seem like a lot, but that's a 50% improvement in what the old conversion rate was. And so that was a fair number of additional subscriptions, and enough. But it wasn't like we had one plan and we just spent months doing it. There were probably 6 or 7 or 8 critical things that were tried, and some of them didn't help, but a lot of them, enough of them did.
Yeah, awesome. By the way, for me, intuition, as you mentioned, like hypothesis, intuition, sometimes works better than logic, because nobody knows what actually works, and I don't like to overlearn. Okay, I can spend a lot of time by research, but when you spend this time, you can't take risk. You can't go ahead to check these things out. It depends. So, and I love experiments. I love just to test something. So
And as you say, I mean, this is a way to de-risk sometimes too. Like one of the biggest risks is that you'll make a plan and spend a lot of money on engineers and designers and build something and find out that not enough people want it, or something else is better, or whatever, all the reasons why a feature or product may fail. Sometimes you could learn that without doing all the work, by making a prototype or by pretending that you have the feature and seeing how many people click on it, or doing kind of a simple non-coded version of it that you just do manually on the back end, but just to find out if people want it, or a no-code version made out of existing modules. Like there's a lot of these different attempts where you can test whether an idea, and you don't want to. And another thing is, you can't experiment all the time on everything. You do have to take risks, and you can't de-risk everything, and not everything's equally risky. Just like you can't do user research about every single choice you're ever going to make in a product. I love user research, and I come from a UX background, user experience background. So the idea of researching and talking to the users is very, very critical in my mind. But I know there's sometimes where you have to say, let's just do this idea. We like this idea. We'll see very quickly if people like it or not. So you're often gauging, like, is this an important enough or risky enough moment that we need to do desk research or do field research or look at some numbers and crunch them? And or is this a case where we can just go, like you say, with intuition or insight, or hey, I've been at this for a while and I think I know what I need to do. Like that's okay too. We're human beings, and we can take a run at stuff.
Nice. I have the final question. Let's imagine you started from scratch without any experience, knowledge, skills. What will you do today to learn more about product management?
Well, I definitely would look probably at some for free online information. In other words, online articles, blogs, or LinkedIn posts and YouTube videos and things like that, because there's a lot of very high quality product management guidance out there. Probably think even like free courses, like at a Coursera, there's probably some, especially if you want to get the basics so you know the language of it. Because with the job, there's being able to do it, and then there's being able to talk the talk and sound like you know how to do it. And it shouldn't, that second part maybe shouldn't matter as much, but it does matter because it's how people recognize that they trust that you understand the details of the job. So a certain amount of like reading the books or taking the classes to learn the jargon and the words is valuable. But the other way to get experience, I think, is to actually try to make a product. In other words, this could be a small thing you want to do, like try to put an app in the App Store or make an Android app, and that doesn't mean all by yourself. Find an engineer to build an idea for you. Find a designer to design something for you. Figure out if your idea that you always wanted to make actually is something other people have. Maybe you don't have anything like that, but help somebody who says, I always wanted to make an app or a product, say, oh, let me try to help you do it. Because that's a way to give yourself experience and actually figure out which parts of that you're good at or that you need to learn more about.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, Christian, it's a big pleasure to get you on my show, to learn from you. You share a lot of value. Tell our audience how they can reach out to you, learn more about you, follow you.
Sure. Probably you can visit my site, designinproduct.com. If you're interested in the subject of user experience design or product management, you can find links there to my book. And that's probably the easiest way to stay in touch. Yeah.
Okay, guys, you can find all these links in the description below. Listen us on Apple, Google, Spotify. Thanks again for your time. It's a big pleasure. And guys, you need to follow Christian. You need to learn from him. You need to read his book because you could see a lot of valuable insights. Okay, guys, love you. See you.
Thank you.